Hey, thank you all for coming again. My name is Victor. I'm co-founder of Humanode, and I love macroeconomics. First, because I'm an economist, and secondly, because this is the least developed science in the world. We are still using the theories that were developed 100 years ago and turned out to be completely wrong. So keep with me, and you'll probably find out what happens right now and how we can change it. We'll start this lecture with the question, what is money? And we'll find out what is the hierarchy of money. How did financial and banking system develop? We will find, how the disentanglement of population from finance happened, and why today most of us feel financial nihilism. And I will outline possible hypothetical stages of transformation of our banking financial system and how we can actually regain control. So what is money? Usually what you find on the internet and what you find in the textbooks, it tells you not about the essence of money, but of the functions of money. They are a medium of exchange, unit of account, and a store of value. A pretty bad one, right? So if we look at one interesting island, so this thing was found out like in 19th century only. This is an island in Micronesia, and basically on the left side you can see the money that they used. Yeah, this is their money. They didn't have any gold, they didn't have any silver on the island, so they decided to use the stones they could find on another island, basically. And these are 4-meter stones, not very comfortable to use, not very portable, and even those stones that were lost during the transfer from another island, they were still used in their economy. And you know why? Because money is a ledger. Basically, we need money to understand who owns what and who owes what and whom, okay? So money is just bookkeeping. It's a record of trust between people. Even in the commodity era, when, remember, we really used silver, we used gold as money, we had IOUs, which means like a document, acknowledging a debt. And well, now I want to delve deeper into the short history of finance and banking. So please follow me to understand what is happening right now, and it's probably not what you think. So we had the commodity era. It was pretty nice. And in the commodity era, the hierarchy of money was pretty straightforward. We held real gold and silver, and we had these IOUs, which is like a promise to pay gold and silver. And there was a clear distinction between money and credit in this sense. Basically, trust in these IOUs is based on the trust in gold, and we have a great anchor there in the monetary system on top, which is gold. Okay, we can all trust gold. This is the anchor of the system. Then we got the gold standard. And it is a little bit different from the commodity era. Basically, the hierarchy of money now looks like this. We have gold in reserves. People don't touch the gold anymore. I mean, regular people. It's held in the banks and in the central bank. And the central bank says that, well, one banknote equals one gold, but eventually it's just a promise to give you one gold. So it's another layer of trust that is needed here. And the thing that happened in this era is that we created and decided that that's a good way to go, fractional reserve, which basically is also explained through banking multiplier. So the money you have in the bank is not the actual money that you can trust, is not the actual money even issued by the government. Why? Because when you make a deposit to a bank, And this was even like 300 years ago. Okay, when you make a deposit to the bank, for example, $1,000, the reserve requirement for the bank, let's say 10%, which is really high actually. And bank must keep this only 100 in reserves, and it can lend out the rest 90% to another person. Okay, so what happens next is that the person who borrowed the money now, for example, bought apples from another person. This another person went to another bank, and now he put $900 from the same 1,000 that came in the step one, right? And this second bank, what? He can give out $810 to the third person, okay? And this money, you know, is still coming from the same base $1,000. So it can go over and over and over again until people come together to take their deposits back at the same time. And the bank run happens. So, well, this is a banking multiplier. Basically, from $1,000, we could create a minimum of $10,000, maybe more, through banks. You know, it's not happening in central bank. It happens through commercial banks. So in a gold standard era, we had gold in reserves. This was our anchor of the system. We had banknotes, supposedly exchangeable one-to-one to gold. And we had deposits in the bank, which are just numbers, okay? And these are promises to give you banknotes, but sometimes the promises are not really kept. And you remember we had a distinction between money and credit, and right now, the distinction, it goes away a little bit. Because for regular people, money in the bank, it's still money, but for a bank, it's just credit. For the central bank, the banknotes is credit. But for the banks, it's real money. Okay? So what I want to show here is that there are benefits to this system, okay? So in the commodity era, we had pretty low elasticity because pretty much all the money we had was gold. And the gold is very limited in supply. That means that it is very scarce, and it's just hard to give out money to the left and right for the development of new businesses and so on. So this is a very disciplined system with very low elasticity. When we switched to the gold standard, we got, you see, we extended our liabilities, but liabilities extend together with the assets in somebody else's pockets. And we got less discipline, but more elasticity and more liquidity, which actually solved some problems. Every year, before having gold standard and banking systems, basically humanity had crisis. Why? Because we were pretty much, we had agricultural economies, and we had the seasonal crisis. We lacked credit to expand our businesses and start new businesses. So our financial system was pretty much illiquid, and hence we had slow economic growth. However, when we had fractional reserve, we also introduced more risks, right? Due to bank runs, due to new layers of trust. So what happened next? Countries all over the world, shortly after, even during World War II, pegged their currency to the dollar, and dollar, US dollar, should have been interchangeable with gold. So this is how now their hierarchy of money looked like if you're not a US country, right? So you got, as an anchor, gold, which is based in US. Then you got US dollar, interchangeable for this gold. Then you got local currency, which is, well, interchangeable for US dollar, and then you got bank deposits with fractional reserve. So we got even more trust assumptions, and the hierarchy of money is even more complex. Suddenly, it happened in 1971. So French government was actually sending a lot of ships with banknotes of US dollar to US to get gold in exchange for it, because US promised to give gold in exchange for US dollars. And well, suddenly the ship goes with the dollars, but with the ship with the gold, it doesn't come back to France. It happened in 1971, and well, we got no more gold-backed currencies anymore. So there is a perfect website, What the Fruit Happened in 1971, and it shows us how it basically went further. Here you can see growth in productivity of our work, of people, okay, as a yellow line, and compensation for it. For some reason, they're not going together anymore since that year. Here you can see income growth. So the blue line, which suddenly stopped growing, is regular population, and the red line is 1% of the rich population. Things change, yeah, dramatically, you see? And this is what happened with the prices for electricity, food, and fruits. Pretty much all we need to live, right? In 1971. So welcome to the fiat money hierarchy. We had a shift from hard anchor, remember the anchor, the gold, to the soft anchor. Right now we don't have gold, which we can trust easily because, well, gold is just there, it's just a physical resource. Now we have to trust in the governments and in the central banking. So at the top right now we have central bank reserves. Then we have deposits, and deposits created by commercial banks, as I showed you, through banking multiplier. And there are much more deposits than central bank reserves. And at the bottom we got securities, which are basically financial instruments that are interchangeable back to deposits at some point of time in the future. And yeah, you can see that, well, central bank reserve based on trust in the government. Deposits are promises to pay the currency that central bank issued, and securities are promises to pay promises to the currency in the future. Suddenly, all money is credit. Remember, we had a clear division of it, but suddenly it's all credit, just different levels of credit. And central bank right now is a lender of the last resort. So you should understand that central banks are not that evil. And when we say like money printer go brr and things like that, it's not actually central bank doing it. Most of the money supply is created, you know, lower in the hierarchy in banking deposits, commercial banks, and securities. But again, this is the fiat money system we don't have anymore. Yeah, this is not all. We still had some developments, good or bad. That's your decision. We got shadow banks. So shadow banks, they're not like shadowy illegal banks, not really, and they're not really banks. So on the left side, you can see regular banks. You probably know these words, right? As assets, they have loans, securities, cash reserves. As liabilities, they have your deposits, they have other borrowing, and they do have some of their own money. But shadow banks are a little bit different. They were developed thanks to our financial innovation happening non-stop. And, well, they got assets as a mortgage-backed security, interest rate swaps, credit default swaps. As liabilities, they have money market borrowing, repurchase agreement, asset-backed commercial paper, euro-dollar borrowing. So as you see, most of the people don't even know what is this, right? And these shadow banks, what characterizes them? They operate outside of traditionally frameworks. They are accessible only to financial institutions and rich family offices. So regular people don't have access to all these instruments, and they cannot even invest in them. And they transfer the risks to the rest of the system. Why? Because now we have central bank at the top, who we have to trust, traditional bank deposits, who create even more money than central bank, but shadow banking instruments that most of the people have no idea about, they create even more of the money supply than the rest of the system at the moment. And they were the reason why we had like crisis of 2008, because nobody even knew how to regulate them back then. But now central banks also try to take care about the shadow banking instruments. So as you can see, in this era we're living in, we have very high elasticity, very low discipline, and that's why our cycles, they go, they have more volatility than before, and even less control from the central bank itself. Actually, central banks try to influence the system to make it more stable, but it's very hard when you can't really control the monetary supply and how many dollars there are in the world. So central bank is here. Really, not a lot of control. But this is not all, unfortunately. These were like 90s, early, this century's first years. In March 2020, remember COVID, right? Remember, all the markets went down. The US Federal Reserve eliminated the fractional reserve requirement for the banks in US, and many developed countries followed. What does it mean? So we lost even the soft anchor at the top. Okay, now the banks, traditional banks, who keep your deposits, they don't even have to keep any reserves at the central bank. So where is the credit? Where is the money? It's only credit, and it's only based on trust. Trust in traditional banks, trust in shadow banking system, which people even don't know about. So that's why we got financial nihilism. Okay, we got, not a little bit, but we got a huge disconnection between finance and society. The system is so complex, it's incomprehensible. We don't even, well, in universities, people don't study this, because people don't yet have textbooks to even read about these systems. And basically, financial tools and policies are not serving people anymore. They're disconnected from our everyday life. We don't have access to them. I mean, shadow banks is the great example, and they create most of the monetary supply. And yeah, people feel exclusion. People feel that the system is rigged, irrelevant. We don't trust it anymore, and we don't even want to learn not anything about it anymore. So what makes it worse is that we got rising consumer prices, unaffordable property, social networks full of lucky, successful billionaires, and people are comparing themselves to them, inequitable access to financial instruments, loneliness, mental issues. Well, it's all pretty bad, and the trust in the money is pretty much lost. And I believe that this is the reason why we have the popularity of meme coins right now. Because they align with the mindset of financial nihilism. The system is already a joke, let's create even more jokes. Building anything long-term is completely impossible, but I better bet all my life savings on a completely useless coin. So I either win a lot or I have nothing. I don't care, right? Because I don't understand the system anymore. People have no control over the financial system whatsoever. And yeah, there is a shift towards just chaotic speculation to assets without intrinsic value. The only thing that meme coins have is a sense of belonging, because now it's a group of people who are all out of financial system, who don't believe it anymore, and they come together. And sometimes, these completely useless coins go to 10 billion valuations in a year or so, or even less. Which is more than GDPs or gold reserves of many countries in this world. And meme coins, the beautiful thing about them, they show the potential for communities to rally around some alternatives to the system we have right now. So why do we rally around meme coins? If we could just think a little bit, if we could a little bit explore how really the system works and find something meaningful long-term and rally around that and have a real change. Basically, the way forward, the only way forward, is to create systems which are transparent, inclusive, human-centric, and in that way we could finally restore trust in the financial system, but we first have to rebuild it a little bit. And here is one of the hypothetical ways forward to transform the current financial system. Well, it can be completely different. This is just one of the examples. Stage one. We have to lay out the foundations of trust, because right now there is pure disentanglement between the anchor. We don't even have the anchor anymore, like central banking reserves. Okay, they're not needed anymore. So what I propose is that take a small country, okay, an imaginary small country, and launch a Humanode-powered national blockchain there, where each citizen is a validator. Then issue, okay, in a small environment for the beginning, for the experiment, issue central bank digital currency backed by treasury that the country already has, which will work in parallel with the current system. And of course, distribute the fees collected by the blockchain to the citizens, validators equally. Stage two, well, our credit markets are too elastic, I suppose. And that's what DeFi protocols can change. They are even better than, you know, centralized banks, because centralized banks, they kind of centralize the risks, while in DeFi protocols the risks are decentralized, because you got even different interest rates for borrowing or lending for each position. However, there is a problem with DeFi today, because it's not very elastic, not enough elastic. Why? Because we got over-collateralization of loans in the DeFi. Basically, in order to have a loan of $100, you have to put into collateral more than $100. But if you don't have money, how are you going to do it? And if you are a business that wants to scale, well, it will not help you scale. So to the credit market, I would add identity-based credit scoring, so that we could have lower collateral requirements, so a little bit of fractional banking, and we could also have unsecured loans for verified participants with good on-chain history. Then monetary functions, stage 3. So CBDC supply, the amount of central bank digital currency we could have, could be changed dynamically based on economic indicators. For example, if there is economic slowdown, to inject more liquidity, we could mint more CBDCs, and we could burn CBDCs during inflationary periods to stabilize the purchasing power. And since we have this citizen-governed blockchain, remember 2008 when the US decided, I would say, like, the congressmen came together, the president came, the biggest banks came together, and then decided, okay, we're bailing out the big bank, otherwise we have troubles. And of course, people were against it. People would say, hey, why don't you distribute money to the people? We're suffering as well here. So it is possible to, in case of emergency, to have liquidity injections into the economy, which are decided not by the banks and congressmen, but by the one citizen, one vote governance. Stage number 4 would be the transfer of national treasury functions to this national blockchain, and tokenization of national assets like bonds, real estate, and infrastructure projects, so that citizens could invest directly into them. And it would, of course, bring more transparency to all the belongings of the government. And we could automate tax collection. Well, maybe that's a good bonus for the government. We could also link pensions, healthcare, and payments to citizens' wallets. And number 5, global integration and economic interoperability. We could develop bridges between the national blockchain and the global DeFi protocols, enable foreign investors to use the stable coins of the CBDC to access these tokenized national assets we talked about before, which brings new investments into our imaginary small economy. And later on, we could help other nations adopt Humanode-powered system and boost economies and have closer relations with them, because this is the system you could trust more. because the risk is more distributed. So stage 6, it will take a lot of time. Maybe it will not look like that, but here is how the system could look like, the system we could all trust, the system we could belong to, and end up with the financial nihilism we have right now. We could have citizens validators that get transaction fees, monetary policy decisions made through Humanode-verified governance and one citizen, one vote, public goods funding like parks and healthcare, whatever government spending we have, making it more transparent and allocated based on citizens' votes again. Lending and borrowing rates, thanks to DeFi and identity-based credit scoring, will be dynamically managed, okay, not just from the top, and same for everybody, but dynamically managed, reducing systemic risks. So the risk of one person wouldn't be shared with the risk of other people, and will have less systemic risks leading to huge crises. And of course, yeah, emergency liquidity injections to bail out people, not banks, and decided by the citizens. And as a bonus, this nation could become a hub for decentralized innovations, attract more investments, simply because it's more transparent and stable, and later on export this technology frameworks to other nations. I mean, whoever adopts this might be, well, a very good beginning. Thank you all.
Thank you, Victor, for this quite difficult lecture, I guess. But hopefully, a lot of heads of states of different countries will see this, and they'll invite you and us to lend them a hand in creating a properly decentralized state.